Bango. Jake Dovey, CEO, founder of PayModum. How's it going, man? Good to have you in the studio.
Yeah, it's great to be with you and enjoying the experience already so far. We've had some off-camera discussions already, so we're quite warmed up.
Yeah, we've been sitting here for 30, 45 minutes chatting now. And Jake, I must say you look impeccable in your Manchester, very well ironed suit and shirt. I appreciate the effort coming into the studio here today, so you should have some credit for that too.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant, Jake. So we've known each other for a while now, of course, and you came to me with a really interesting proposition to do an episode, and I'm really glad that we are here today. Of course, you are the kind of expert in the payment space, of course, as the CEO and founder of PayModum. You have background at Trustly, of course, and this is your space. And for me, what is really interesting in the payment space is that every time there is an innovation in the space of payments, the world changes. Right? It is really one of those spaces where any form of innovation will have such a big impact on, any human being in the world, more or less. So today, what we're going to talk about is just this, that why payments and innovation are not always linked and why they should be. So like innovation in the payment space. So my first question to you, Jake, is can you just summarize a bit innovation in the payment space as you see it today? How do you think about innovation in payments?
Yeah, so innovation in payment today has been quite a jagged process. If you probably were to, draw something on the graph, it would go up and down and up and down. Where you tend to see the most innovation in payment is not really the way that most people think about payment. Most people think about payment is it comes internally from a Visa and a MasterCard or a Trustly or, one of these other payments companies. Where we actually see the most innovation in payment is coupled with a number of technological advances. One of the best examples that I like to give on this is that if you think about contactless payment, and more broadly, on more of a granular level, if you think about Apple Pay and how that's changed our day-to-day lives in terms of how we pay for things, both online and in store, with Apple Pay, that really could have only come about with the iPhone itself. So when the iPhone was obviously, became popularized in sort of 2012, 2013, it was the coupling and bringing together of lots of different pieces of technology, not necessarily the underlying payment technology. So the technology that came together when the iPhone, Apple Pay was incepted or came into being, which is actually a technology back from the 90s. Which is probably quite hard for some people to even, grasp with. And it was actually first introduced as a payment option back in 1997 with Mobile, Mobile Esso, depending on the brand, depending on where you live, there was a petrol station. So it was a paid card that you could use and actually contactlessly pay. So instead of waiting for somebody or, remembering a passcode, a digit, whatever it is to make that payment possible, that was obviously a very granular space. In 2004, Sony were actually the ones that first payment together in their phone, which again, nobody knows this story. So, again, it wasn't quite ready then yet because there wasn't that ability back in 2004 to really couple everything together digitally. You didn't have the cloud, and you certainly didn't have, the 3G, 4G technology that really become popularized by the time that Apple came around. So at every single one of these points, it actually requires far more than just an underlying technology in order to advance things. Certainly with this example that we're going through at the moment. And anyway, so when you see real innovation, the things that, are 10x things where, you, Pierre, will tell your friends about or anyone will start doing on a day-to-day basis, those real 10x ideas are using a coupling together of all of that technology as opposed to sort of an underlying technology. So I'm always going against the grain here in saying these things, but those big jumps really have generally taken place when there's been a coupling together of technology. There are other examples as well. If you go back to more recently, 2019, from your home country in Sweden. There's obviously a very big company. Hopefully they're going to list this year, because I think that will be good commentary for all of us payments guys. Klarna came into the space and were around forever. Or not forever, that's probably not correct, but were around for a long time. But it wasn't until they really found certain businesses where they had that 10x explosion. And one of those sort of 10x experiences that they were able to generate and create was alongside the stationary bike company. I'm trying to remember the name of it. What's the stationary bike called?
The stationary bike.
You know the bike. They're a super popular one.
That you stand up with. I know which ones.
It's not Zwift. That's what all the real cycling nuts do. But the other one. But anyway, they coupled together this technology and really, a product like that always had to be financed if you couldn't pay the upfront 2, 3, 4, 5,000 euros, whatever it was upfront. But it was kind of like a marriage made in heaven. And so in 2019 or around this period, don't quote me on this, when they sort of coupled together that sort of technology and were able to break down that transaction in split transactions and split payments and be able to give somebody almost immediate access to credit rather than them having to go to a bank or go through a very tedious process of a manual bank check for a typical financing application, they had sort of married those two things together. So that was sort of Klarna and marrying themselves to really a technology and a financing area specifically. So much so that became, I think, 30-40% of their revenue at the time, before it really sort of catapulted themselves into, other brands trying to copycat and go into that space. And there's plenty of examples of those 10x scenarios that start to take place, but they'll find and take place in one environment, and then somebody else will sort of move in, and then it gets everybody talking about it. Oh, I had this amazing experience the other day. I have my own experiences with it as well. So, in 2015 it was, HSBC in the UK were the first bank to have Apple Pay. So when you were adding your card to your phone back then, you would scan it and then manually enter in all of the information, and then you would have to call the bank to add it, which obviously most people, now they're like, what? Speak to a real person. And you would add it into the phone. And, at the time it was like, okay, this is an interesting experience. Finally got it added. I walked into a corner store to go and purchase, I don't know, packet of crisps, whatever it was. And I went to pay with my phone, and the guy stopped me. He goes, "What are you doing?" Because he assumed it was some sort of scam, something had taken place, because he had never seen this sort of technology. He had a contactless terminal, but he had never seen this technology before. So he actually stopped me before I left the shop, because he thought this was a scam. This is back. It was only in 2015 as well. So, goes to show, how quickly things have sort of changed since this moment. And yeah, it wasn't until you sort of had those sort of inception points where then the tube started to accept sort of contactless, via your phone. And now you look at the tube and probably 70, 80, 90% of everybody, if they're a Londoner or somebody like that, will always tap, using their phone, because it's just completely ubiquitous. Yeah. But at the time that was something totally new. But that was that 10x moment. Wait a minute, I don't need a card anymore. I can put this into my phone and carry it around with me and use it to pay for things. Yeah. So yeah.